welcome to this incredible session. A very big thank you to Wild 3 Digital for inviting all of us here today. I think it's going to be a very exciting session indeed. Every time I talk about cryptocurrency, people are always asking me questions about what are the new regulations in place and how we can play around these regulations, work with regulators, and leverage to make sure that we really grow in the crypto space. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ross. I'm representing Luno Malaysia, and I'm going to be the moderator for this afternoon. Let me quickly introduce our amazing lineup of speakers this afternoon, and I'm going to pass it over to them just in a few moments to let them introduce themselves as well. Now, we've got Mr. Hock, Chia Hock. He's the co-chairman of Blockchain Association of Singapore. Mr. Hock, give us a big wave. All right, there he is. He's really, really excited to speak here this afternoon. And, you know, he has more than 2 decades of experience in the financial and tech industry, having worked in Singapore's GovTech and NTUC Income. He's deeply involved in the Singapore fintech scene. And, you know, I was just looking at his testimonials on LinkedIn, and people were leaving comments that he is full of energy. Certainly, you need a lot of energy when you work in the blockchain industry because you are running a race, but the line keeps going further and further away. You need to keep running. So it's glad to have you with us, Mr. Hock. Right next to him, we've got Miss Asih. Miss Asih is the chairwoman of the Asosiasi Blockchain Indonesia, right? The Blockchain Association of Indonesia. On LinkedIn, she says that the chairwoman is someone that everybody wants to know and network with, but it's a job that nobody wants to take up, right? So, but Miss Asih, we're so glad to have you with us, and you really are at the forefront of development, right? It's not an easy place to be, but we're going to be chatting with you in just a moment. We've also got Mr. Harpreet. Mr. Harpreet is the president of Access Blockchain Association, as well as the co-founder and CEO of Blocklime. In fact, I've met Mr. Harpreet in real life. I like to joke with him that all his hair went down here, all my hair went up here. If we combine, we will be the biggest, hairiest people in the whole of crypto. But you know, it's great to have you with us here, Mr. Harpreet. I love looking at your amazing beard as well. Now, Mr. Harpreet really focuses on the fact that blockchain goes beyond just finance. It goes to way more other applications, and I'd love to hear his points of view on the matter as well. In fact, fun fact about him, he started coding at the tender age of 14 years, and he even started into blockchain development at 19 years old. So ladies and gentlemen, age is just a number. Whether you're young, whether you're old, blockchain and Web 3.0 truly is the future. Now, before we go into the meat of the matter, I'm going to ask each of our speakers to just give a quick introduction about themselves and to explain in one short sentence what is the most important thing that you do in your work in the blockchain industry. Mr. Hock, can we start with you, please?
Thanks, Ross, for your kind introduction. My name is Hock. I wear multiple hats, but today I will focus on my honorary role as the co-chairman for the Blockchain Association Singapore. Actually, I was the former and founding president for the Singapore Fintech Association, but the last 2 years, I'm all into blockchain because I believe blockchain is the next fintech. So that's where I'm spending most of my time in. Thanks.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much, Mr. Hock. Can we go to Miss Asih all the way in Indonesia? Could you explain your work in just one short sentence? What's the most important thing that you do?
Thanks, Rose. So yeah, my name is Asih, and I'm the chairwoman of the Asosiasi Blockchain Indonesia, or the Indonesian Blockchain Associations. I think the most important and what we have been doing since 2017, when the association was established, is that we continuously interfaces with government policymakers, companies, and universities, which our mission is to be the government's partner to spread awareness and positive use of blockchain and digital assets in Indonesia. I think that's it.
Fantastic. It's clear that you definitely do work very closely with the governments. I've got some tough questions for you, Ms. Asih. I'd love to hear your opinions later. Last but not the least, Mr. Harpreet, could you please introduce yourself and tell us the most important part of your work in the blockchain industry?
So similarly to Hock, I actually wear multiple hats as well. So I run a development company, which is Blocklime. We noticed that there was a shortage of developers in the space. So we started to train a lot of blockchain developers and provide development services. But mainly these days, at my role as president in the Access Association, I'm interfacing a lot with the regulators, government agencies to facilitate the development of the industry and also look into how we can actually make the industry more safe and secure. Yeah, that's my role.
Sounds amazing. In fact, all of these amazing speakers wear multiple hats, except me. I cannot wear any hat at all because my hair will not allow it. But anyway, enough about that, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ross. As I said earlier, my job in crypto is to educate and teach people about what Bitcoin is, what crypto is. And honestly, our mission at Luno is to put the power of cryptocurrency in everyone's hands. You know, ladies and gentlemen, the crypto market as of today, when I just checked, is just about hitting the $2 trillion market valuation, right? With more than 200 over million users of crypto around the world, right? It started all with Bitcoin 2009 and all the way today, 2022. So much has changed. And as this industry has evolved, there are bound to be things like challenges, regulations, and rules that we need to overcome, that we need to understand how we can integrate with, right? Crypto is decentralized by design. But today we're going to talk about this idea of governance, crypto regulation. Some people say this is anti-crypto. Some people say it might kill the industry. Well, that's what our job here is today. We're going to find out from our amazing speakers what they feel about the matter. All right, I'm going to kick things off. We're going to go all the way to Singapore to Mr. Hockley. Mr. Hockley, I've got this very interesting question for you. For those of you who may be listening, perhaps if you don't know already, in Singapore, there have been some recent very strict regulation when it comes to crypto advertising in the space. So Mr. Hockley, could you tell us a little bit about what's happening right now with the Monetary Authority of Singapore and their recent ban on crypto advertisements? And how can crypto players make the most out of this situation?
Yeah, so I'll just comment on what the publicly available information. I think when the guideline on the banning of retail crypto and even the crypto ATM machine came out, we were one of the most critical organizations on this guidance for two reasons. First, I think while the intention is to protect consumer interest, we think that this will do in the contrary, because without the advertisement from the licensed players, now the consumer, or the retail investors, they will be only watching advertisement from the unlicensed or unregulated players. And then that means that those players can't afford them the kind of protection that a licensed player would give them. The second reason is that we think that there are more effective ways to protect consumers rather than bluntly banning the crypto. First, we could go for responsible advertisement, whereby we could go through an independent third party that will actually approve sanitized advertisement that trivialize trading of crypto. So that is done by the Spanish regulator. Or it could be done through the industry associations coming out with a code of practice so that everyone follow that. And the second way, which is done by certain kinds of investment, financial products in Singapore, like contract for difference or derivative, which is the CKA, or what we call is customer knowledge assessment. We thought that these are the more effective ways to address the part on consumer protection. As for how the players could make the best use of what is happening now, I think the good news is that the MAS, the regulator, has been engaging the regulator since the issuance of the guidance. So in a few weeks, they will be publishing self-explanatory guidance to give more clarity of the do's and don'ts. So that is a good sign forward. They also pointed out that if the industry can get together, coming up with a set of code of practice, there are chances of scaling back or even lifting the ban. So that's definitely a good thing. So watch out for the revised guidance, or reach out to your respective industry association and get help from them. Thanks.
Right. Mr. Hockley, what a very comprehensive answer. I was going to ask some more questions, but you answered all my questions already in that amazing 2-3 minutes. But I think you really pointed out some very key points. For example, when the ban first came out, it seemed like a very blunt, everything is banned, right? And nobody can do any advertising. And it was really quite stifling for the crypto players. And how did you feel when this first came to light? What was your expressions that you felt upon hearing this initial ban that came out?
Yeah, I mean, right on the day it was announced, I already provided my code to Bloomberg. We understand the rationale of the ban,
right?
But we disagree with the method. Yeah, because it is really a very blunt. I think probably we are the only country that banned crypto advertisement.
Right.
Yeah, so that was our initial response. And then immediately we organized a feedback session from the industry, gathering our members, provide feedback, and submitted our recommendation to the regulator. And then after that, we start having this conversation with the regulator, how the industry can progress forward in a positive way that can address the concerns, which is retail investors being harmed by reckless trading, while still supporting innovation in this space.
Yeah, no, I think that's the one. It's a great response that you had as a team. That sometimes regulators, they may overstate their regulation, and then you give them feedback, right, from the people on the ground. How can we find a middle ground together? I think my favorite word that you said earlier was that what the players are looking for is clarity, right? Clarity, exactly what is allowed, what is not allowed. And it's good to see that the attitude of people is that they're willing to work within the framework as long as it's clear for all the players to benefit. And at the end of the day, I think the rationale, I would also agree with that. We want to protect people from scammers. We want to protect them from high-risk investments where people can lose money. Just today on WhatsApp, Mr. Hock, someone was sharing a video of a guy who just lost $10 million in trading Bitcoin. He was trying to, long the market. Suddenly the market dropped and he lost so much money. And so I think for the average investor, it's important that, advertising follows a framework that is safe, in this manner. So thank you so much, Mr. Hock. I think that's a great comprehensive answer that he's given about the advertising space, particularly in Singapore. I think that was one of the recent things that we saw coming out. And I think you mentioned that there are some new do's and don'ts coming out. More clarity will be coming out, a new framework. Is that right? Okay. All right, so I think everybody in Singapore, you can look forward to that, and hopefully we'll be able to work within that framework as well. All right, now we're going to go all the way to Indonesia. Miss Asih, I see you smiling there in front of the camera, looking at my beautiful hair, I'm sure. I've heard a lot of interesting stories about this, the new regulatory challenges in Indonesia. Correct me if I'm wrong. I heard this thing about a 0.1% tax. Is that correct? Perhaps, Miss Asih, you can tell the audience a little bit, maybe just give us a general overview. What does regulation look like for crypto in Indonesia today, and the kind of challenges that you guys have to face there?
Right. So the current policy under COFTRA, or the Commodity Futures Trading Authority, or what you call BAPEPTI, is already very clear, actually. And I think it also provides a legal certainty and protection, because there is a strict standard, such as an approval from the head of BAPEPTI to carry out activities, a minimum paid up capital, and then minimum organizational structure, etc. So this policy was issued in 2019 and has been developing since. So from our perspective, I think BAPEPTI or any other related regulators in Indonesia are very open to the industry perspectives and needs. But again, the challenge, I think, will not raise because of the policy, since there are already 18 registered crypto exchanges now that can comply to it. But the challenges now is how well our regulators can coordinate with one another. As we know, crypto trading will involve other industry as well. There's supposed to be a clear boundary to make sure the policies will not be overlapping. Other than that, I don't see it as a challenge, but more of what can be improved. Recently, BAPEPTI is trying to comply with FATF guidelines on anti-money laundering and terrorism funding. They issued a travel rules policy. I think Rose is probably aware with that. But however, we see this isn't quite right yet in terms of the procedure of the reporting. So we are actively suggesting some improvements there. So again, I think there are still gaps in the policy that need to be filled specifically to comply with the global regulations. And about the tax, actually, yes, our Ministry of Finance, right. Our Ministry of Finance, the very last week just issued a regulations regarding value-added tax or VAT and income tax related to crypto asset transactions, including the mining pool management services and taxation verification services. Basically, we fully support the taxation imposed by the government to crypto asset transactions, as we believe it could be an additional capital gain or profit received by the taxpayer to be considered as an object of tax. Seeing how the last year's total crypto asset transaction in Indonesia reached more than $59 billion, increasing
Wow.
more than 10 times from the 2020's transaction value. But again, I think the tax tariff itself should be fully considered to make sure the taxation did not, discourage the public from buying crypto assets. So right now we are trying to give the bigger view to our policymakers that crypto is being traded not just in Indonesia. There are more than 300 similar crypto exchanges all around the world, where local exchanges need to maintain their competitiveness. So if the tax or fee is too high, they would just use the local exchange to get the main coins and trade on global exchanges. And we don't want that. We don't want that capital outflow, which could lead to an unhealthy industry. So yeah, we and all the players are working on that for now, Rose.
Okay, wow, Asih, you've given a very positive and optimistic view about regulations in Indonesia. When I first heard the news, I saw a lot of negative comments. People were confused, but I'm glad to see that things are developing in the right way. I think moving forward, there are a lot of conversations between you and the regulators that are going on. And wow, 59 billion. That's not a small number. Indonesians love crypto, huh, Asih? Wow.
Right, yes.
They do indeed. Yeah, I honestly believe Asia is a crypto hub and so much more development is happening here. And talking about development, I'm going to go to my dear friend, Mr. Harpreet. Harpreet, in terms of development in Malaysia, I think in Malaysia, one of our regulators is the Securities Commission of Malaysia, and they recently issued a new license called the IEO license. Harpreet, could you share a little bit what is this IEO license and what effect will it have on the whole crypto and blockchain industry?
So the IEO license stands for Initial Exchange Offering. So currently, there's a new guidelines that has been published by the Security Commission, and there's actually two operators who have actually been recognized and registered to actually go out and allow companies and issuers to come up and issue their tokens in a regulated environment here in Malaysia, right? So if let's say any company wants to go up and raise, like funds using tokens, now they can do so in a regulated environment using these IEO operators here in Malaysia. So that's the whole process and the whole guidelines all about. And currently, we've actually been very excited about it because we've been pushing a lot of these guidelines and a lot of these discussions for the past 3 years. And the guidelines was issued 2 years back during the hype of, during the height of the ICOs and, and IEOs emergence back then. And now finally it's here. And we are hoping in the next 8 to 9 months for us to start seeing Malaysian companies to go and start issuing their own tokens and their own digital assets to actually raise money and also to actually build their own Web3 startups here in Malaysia. Yeah, so that's IEO.
Right, that's fantastic. I think the fact that we can get more wealth in the industry in a regulated way may help the industry grow even more. I think previously in the 2017 ICO boom, there were a lot of rug pulls, a lot of scams, and people lost a lot of money. I know friends of mine who invested and then they all got burned. And so hopefully, I think that with this new IEO license, do you think it will create a safer framework that more companies, more capital will be more likely to inflow into the blockchain industry? What do you think about this?
Definitely. Actually, in this sort of a regulated environment is actually going to attract a lot of the traditional companies because you have to see Malaysia is like more than 90% SMEs, right? So the focus of this IEO guidelines is actually to uplift these SMEs and actually give them new ways to actually go up and innovate in the technology space and actually allow more capital flow into it, and also attract more foreign capital into the country. Right. So there has been some of the goals to actually, and among the reasons why this guidelines was implemented in the first place. So if you look into how this actually will attract, we already can see already there's a lot of interest, especially from our traditional SME players who actually been really good in traditional markets. Now they're looking into how to get digital. How can they actually go up and build their new products using blockchain, crypto, and all these new elements. And actually be part of this whole Web3 and Metaverse space, right? So this is going to be an innovation driver in a way to push out. But I think from the stand of the regulators, a lot of their pre-work has been done. A lot of the guidelines that they were trying to issue and the operators is actually being done right now. I think moving forward, there has to be more players coming into the space, especially in the industry. I think at this particular time, we need more consultation companies we need more legal advisory companies who actually understand what is IEO and how this guidelines is going to work, right? And then we need more development companies who actually can go up and assist a lot of this development needs of this particular IEO issues. And then we need more developer training companies, right? So a lot of ecosystem development is, I think, is the next step that we need in the next 8 to 9 months, because the operators are getting ready meanwhile for them to actually be able to start issuing, to facilitate issuance, right? But overall, the industry of IEO in Malaysia, in the regulated space, need much more than that. I think that has been where our association focus has been. So tomorrow when IEOs are ready, people are trying to issue their tokens, there's already a support system locally here in Malaysia. So they, issuance become much easier. And at the same time, I think there's also need to be a push of education. Maybe this is something that Luno and us, maybe we can look into something over here to go up and educate more people on what exactly is this whole new asset class and whole new guidelines all about.
Absolutely. No, I wholly agree with you, Harpreet. I think you've also given a very optimistic view about the future. Now that regulators have come in, it's a lot safer. Big companies can now come into the space, invest into these token offerings, and perhaps even grow the space. I like what you really pointed out. The space is growing so fast. There are so many new jobs being created that have never existed before. Crypto consultant. Where 5 years ago would we ever have heard of such a job? And now that's an actual job. People are looking for developers, designers in the space, or even the number one question I get is, what about legal? What about taxes? Soon we will be having specialized crypto taxation authority, something like that, right? Because people are so excited to jump forward, but the framework is now just catching up. So I like what you said as well. It's been in development since 2019. Right now, everything is slowly, the gears are coming into place. And I think as we see more and more players come into the space, what I look forward to is the crypto space becoming more matured. Right? Today, we're gathered from all over Asia, right? We've got Indonesia, we've got Singapore, we've got Malaysia, and hopefully even more players come into the space and grow the space together. Now, I'm going to touch on something very important that I would like all of you to just give me a short comment on. It's something that Asih actually brought up earlier, the travel rule. Wow. Okay. I speak about this because Luno is going to be implementing the travel rule soon. We informed all of our Malaysian customers. In fact, we've already implemented it in Singapore. So I want to ask each of you to give a quick opinion. But before you do, let me just explain what this phrase travel rule means to the wider audience watching at home. So there is an institution known as the FATF, which stands for the Financial Action Task Force, right? They're an independent intergovernment body, right, that handles policies for global finance, right? Anything to do with anti-money laundering or counter-financing of terrorism and so on and so forth. So they come up with all these policies, and any country that has regulators that subscribe to the FATF system, they follow the rules, right? And one of these new rules is with regards to something known as a travel rule, which essentially in very simple plain English means when you send or when you receive cryptocurrency, you need to declare where you're sending it to and who you're receiving it from. And so this was really met with a lot of mixed reviews online, right? Some people are for it, some people are against it. I'd like each of you to share your opinion on it. Ms. Asih, since you mentioned it earlier, could you just give us a little comment about how Indonesia is reacting to this travel rule news?
Sure, Ross. I think it's we see it as a very positive impact, and also a very positive progress on the regulations. Again, I think since crypto and also blockchain is something that is very hyped now in Indonesia, so a lot of ministries are actually going to ask about how the regulation and everything, and also about the concerns about the anti-money laundering and terrorism funding and all. So I think since there is this travel rule, it's very easy for us, for the association, to explain them that there is a specific policy about it, and it's already under Bapepti, under the trade minister. So I think for now, it's a very positive from our perspective and from the industry. And again, it's not perfect just yet, but we're giving a lot of feedbacks for the Bapepti.
Okay, it's good to know that there's a lot of positive receptance, and you're obviously poised in a place where you're ready to help people understand. But obviously, it is something new, right? Even in Malaysia, it's something very new. There's room for improvement. I think as long as we can have good feedback between us and the regulators. Hopefully, we can work things out as well. Mr. Hock, can you share from Singapore's perspective? I believe Singapore has already got some travel rule in place already. Could you perhaps share how have people reacted to it? How is it progressing? Is there a lot of feedback going on? What's the situation like over there in Singapore?
Yeah, thanks, Ross. I think first and foremost, right, we must recognize that actually travel rule is not new. It's just something transplanted from our fiat payment system into crypto, and that is what one of the key reasons why now more countries are recognizing crypto as a legitimate type of transaction, because with the travel rule, we could reduce the risk of money laundering and terrorist financing. I think all the players in Singapore, which are either under XM, already got the payment services license, they have to comply with the travel rule. So that's not a question of whether they like to comply or not. They have to comply if they want to operate in Singapore. Yeah. So I think the key thing about all the players, especially during the early stage, right, is that while FATF state the implementation of a travel rule, but they never state what is the standard to do it. So that resulted in a fragmentation of different players in the market. But we are heartened to see that some of the players, they actually recognize that it makes sense to consolidate. So in Singapore, we have this very vast alliance. So basically, it's an alliance of the crypto exchanges. Most of them are the Blockchain Association members. So they actually just use the same travel solution. So that makes it easier for everyone to comply, because the more people using a system that's compatible with everyone else, it makes implementation easier. But like it or not, at least for the next few years, there will be multiple systems. So likely everyone will have to implement a few different travel rule systems depending on their relationship among the different exchanges.
Yeah. I think you highlighted two very important things that I picked up. One is that travel rule is nothing very new, right? Banks have been doing it all the time, right? When I put your bank number in, immediately I can see your name there. Where does the information come from? Why isn't anybody, making noise about it? Because it's something we're very used to, I believe. That's why. But you also pointed out that there are a lot of different sort of standards that are going on. There's no like one travel rule fits all, right? Everybody's sort of like interpreting it in their own way. And what I think we're looking forward to is that if we have a standardized system, then perhaps everybody in the industry, very smooth. Crypto can flow easily and smoothly. So I think that's possibly the future that you've painted for us. And it's definitely a future I would like to look forward to as well. We go to Harpreet. Harpreet, in Malaysia, personally, I know you and I are both from Malaysia. Some people in the community were asking me, crypto is about decentralization, blockchain, distributed ledger technology. Why are we having travel rule? How would you respond to the travel rule from that perspective?
I understand why it's there, and why is it really needed, right? But I don't agree with it the way it's been implemented, right? So and I don't think it's really gonna work, right? So if you really look into it from the financial investigator units, like in each of these regulators, from them, they're like, oh, we have no data. We need more data so we can actually track where this money is flowing. And then we need implement these new rules so we can do better tracking and, tracing of transactions and payments. But from the industry perspective, it's going to be different, right? So from people who are going to be using this crypto space, whoever knows a bit more about DeFi, whoever knows a bit more about the whole technology space, who are a bit more technically sound, they are going to start moving their money out of all the regulated industries, right? They're going to be taking out their money from all these RMOs out, right? So because they would want to be in a space, one, where a lot of the development is happening, where a lot of the financial products are being built. And I think something that Jonathan pointed out early on during the opening of this discussion itself, that it has to be a balance, right? A balance, a place for people to innovate, right? Build new products, don't have too much of hassles, but at the same time safe and secure, right? If you feel that by actually gathering a lot of information about it, by using travel rule, you're actually making the space more secure. I don't see it. The counter argument will be, what if these exchanges get hacked, right? What if their database get leaked, right? Yep. So now everybody will know that Harpreet has so much of Bitcoin and how much, and if you can see, even our banks are hacked. Our telcos are hacked. Our government agencies are hacked. More than 50, 60 different of our government agencies' data is all on the darknet. All my IC, all my address, and all my details are there. Not only Malaysian, Indonesian, Singaporean, everybody got hacked. Everybody's databases are on the darknet. How safe are these exchanges, right? Tomorrow, when you implement travel rule, you take everybody's crypto addresses, everybody's balances, everybody's data. One hack, all the data is already on the darknet. Now I know who has more Bitcoin and who to actually target, right? So when you say that gathering more data actually secures the ecosystem, I think no, you actually allow them, like an easier way of locating your targets, and and also coming up with giving tools to more scammers, right? But I think we need solutions, but I think that we cannot go up and take financial industries' old solutions that actually worked really well in closed ecosystems and fix it into an open public blockchain ecosystem space. We need regulators to think on how they can build tools, analytical tools in the space, and they need to work openly with the industry to develop those to counterbalance the AML and ATF, solutions in the space, right? You have to rethink, your regulation thought process if you really want to actually go up and bring a kind of a positive impact. But what they call in this whole industry. But if, let's say, you go up from the perspective that, hey, we can take this old thing that worked in the finance industry, let's go and get more data, it's actually quite risky, right? We are just waiting for 1 or 2 exchanges from this regulated industry to get hacked, and then everybody out there will be actually cursing the travel rule. That's my perspective on it.
No, I think that's a very good point you bring up as well, Harpreet, this idea about security, right? About anonymity, about knowing that your data is protected. But if people are monitoring, what happens? Who protects the protectors? So I think that's also an important thing that you pointed out. And I like how you phrased it, that it's challenging when you use what has already worked for the finance industry in traditional finance, but to try and apply it to the crypto industry, which didn't even exist, 12, 13 years ago. It's a new industry. And so you're proposing for a new thinking, a new sort of framework, right? A revision of old concepts and coming up with better ways to implement things like the travel rule, to combat against counter financing of terrorism, AML. Perhaps there could be a crypto sort of solution for these things. I think that's a good perspective to have, and something that we as listeners should also consider as well when it comes to things like regulations in the space. Yes, they can definitely be a little bit challenging at times, right? Like Hock also mentioned, sometimes one regulator is following this, one is following this standard. Which standard do you follow, right? Or in Asih's case, sometimes they may launch a new taxation, but people may not be certain what it is. There are some gaps to fill. And so these are some of the challenges, I think, that we all face in the blockchain industry, in the crypto regulation space. Although in general, I think from listening to all of you, I think, believe that the rationale behind regulations is good, right? We want to protect people. We want to protect people's currency as well and their crypto, right? And I rest easy knowing at night that, my crypto is safe, right? Wherever it is, whether it's in an exchange or whether it's in a particular wallet or the other. So I think the rationale is good, but we definitely are looking forward to developing together with regulators to improve on the space. Now, we were asking some questions from the audience. I do have just one little question that came in here. It's about DAOs, right? Decentralized autonomous organizations, right? So we talk about governance and regulation with regards to the traditional institutions which are there. But DAOs are like the crypto version of regulation, right? Perhaps I open this to the floor. Whoever would like to share a little bit about your idea of DAOs. Do you think DAOs, crypto DAOs, could be the future of governance in this space? Okay, let's see who would like to take this answer.
I think I'll pick it up.
Okay, sure.
I just wanted to share some perspective because DAO is booming. It's going to actually grow even bigger in the next 2 years, I think, right? You can see that there's emergence of event DAOs. You can see emergence of protocol DAOs and, community DAOs, finance DAOs, right? Quite a lot of them are emerging. And then we can see a lot of policy changes as well. We can see where in state of Wyoming, Delaware, like BVI, Malta, Gibraltar, everybody's actually building up policies to attract these companies to structure their DAOs in these jurisdictions. And they actually even allow you to, collectively set up a DAO and go up and even purchase land or, get a bank account and all of those as well, as long as there's already a very clear structure on these DAOs and it's actually maturing. So I think this is going to be followed by other jurisdictions as well. When they see a lot of these DAOs are actually bringing in benefit, where they're bringing in, helping to improve the economy, right, in different regions, they will actually start to structure that in their country as well, and they will set up rules and guidelines according to each of on what is best for their country or their jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So I think DAOs are going to mature even further. Because if you really go back and see how is it different from cooperatives, right? How are they different from other sort of business structures that we had previously? That has to be quite clear, right? There has to be, we need to be very clear on how the structuring and the security element at the back, and ensuring who will be the people who are liable for it. Has to be quite clear at the back.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
So,
Very true, Harpreet. I'm so sorry to cut you off a little bit early. We are running short on time, but good answer. I think new things and new developments in the space from all our speakers. I think we're looking forward to a very exciting space in terms of governance, in blockchain, in crypto, in regulation. And I think most importantly, the takeaway here is that regardless of what governing crypto regulations are put in place, what's most important is that we have a good communication with the regulators to feedback to them, people on the ground, what is the sentiment like, how can we continue to improve and, mature in the space together. So once again, a very big thank you all the way in Singapore, Mr. Chia Hock Lai from Indonesia, Ms. Asih, and from Malaysia, Mr. Harpreet. Really appreciate all your insights into the crypto regulation and governance space in this interesting and very exciting industry. I think all of you listening at home, this industry is booming. So get in right now and let's see how far we can fly together. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I really appreciate all of you. And also a big thank you to Wild3 for hosting this session. I'm going to pass the time back to our organizer to continue with the rest of the agenda.